This is an introduction to a guide to study better, focusing on comprehension. There are two parts that follow this introduction, a part one and a part two. Here, we're going to be focusing on what is comprehension, why is it important to the SACA exams, how to improve our comprehension, and our objectives. So what is comprehension? What it is not is memorizing. The definition Merriam-Webster gives, they give a couple. The first is the act or action of grasping with intellect. The other is the capacity for understanding fully. And I just want to focus on this fully part because it's really not a basic understanding. It's really understanding the concepts, which is going to be really important for these SACA exams. So why? Well, some of the benefits that we have are enhanced critical thinking skills, we have better analytical skills, improved academic performance, improved writing skills, better communicators. It increases our self-confidence, and having a good comprehension of the material allows us to pass the SACA exams. So this is an excerpt of an interview of Jim Wall, SACA's executive director. And in it, he identifies the problem that employers are having in the industry is not having qualified candidates that possess the necessary hands-on skills and knowledge needed for these modern advanced jobs. His whole goal of creating SACA was this right here, and it really focuses on this. Individuals who possess the competencies needed by employers. So a synonym for competency would be to be proficient. And another one is capable. You don't have to be a genius. You just need to understand. So why? A few exam questions are fill-in-the-blank vocabulary questions. They require demonstrated ability to apply knowledge to practical scenarios. You're not just going to be, memorizing concepts, because memorizing concepts is not going to get you to pass. Amatrol and SACA do not always use the same terms and phrases and vocabulary for things. SACA is going to use different vocab and terms that you're not going to see on Amatrol, so it's very important to increase our comprehension. They are designed to challenge your comprehension of the material. So now we're going to talk about methods of improving our comprehension. So number one, I kind of mentioned a little bit in the previous slide, and I also mentioned this in my note-taking guide of how important it is to develop our vocabulary. Find multiple definitions of something that you are maybe not quite understanding. There's always more than one way to define something. Using context clues. These are words, phrases, or sentences surrounding an unknown word that provides hints about what it means. Summarizing. Challenge yourself to summarize and explain things that you're learning. Sometimes we find that we may feel confident that we know what it means, but then when it comes to us explaining these things to other people or writing it in our own words in our notes, we find that maybe we don't. And so that kind of sheds some light on maybe something that we need to study on a little bit more. Identifying key ideas. So finding key ideas, they could be in the topic sentences, the main idea of the module you're studying. You might have a syllabus of whatever you're studying that will have, a list of objectives. And this is a really helpful one. The SACA at the very end will give you a prescription of improvement. It doesn't matter if you pass or fail an exam, they're going to give this to you anyway. If you click on this, it will give you a whole list of topics and subtopics. These are the questions that you didn't do well on. And so it will tell you exactly what you need to study. It will not give you the questions you got wrong, but it will give you the topics they cover. So these are some more methods of improving. Making predictions. Here we're using context clues and our prior knowledge to make a hypothesis. Ask questions. Who, what, where, why, and how. You notice that I structured my presentation similarly. Why, how, what. Be curious, search online, ask in class. There's a lot of YouTube creators that make tons of videos on the subjects that we're studying here. You can also check out your public library. Drawing pictures and visualizing is another great way. In the electrical world, there's a lot of things visually you're going to need to be able to understand. A lot of schematics, a lot of diagrams, a lot of symbols. Make sure that you draw these and label them in your notes. And last but not least, we have engaging the material. This I have last because it does focus on some of the other things that we talked about. In my note-taking guide, it goes over a lot of ways that we actively engage in the material. Asking questions is another way to engage in the material. Using flashcards. A lot of my classmates in my cohort used Quizlet. Quizlet has a lot of SACA flashcards, a lot of different ones for the same one. So for example, this one for 201 has 91 flashcards. There are other ones for 201 that has less. So if maybe you don't want to, you don't need a more in-depth study session, you could get one that has less. Forming study groups is another great way. If I realize that everybody has restrictions and obligations outside of class, and maybe this isn't an easy option, but this is also something that's super helpful. Here is an example out of my personal notebook of drawings that I have in my notes. And this is what I mean about labeling and explaining things. The amateur modules have a lot of different modules for one section. So like, for example, 207 has, I think it's like 17 modules. So from the time that you start studying this first section in 207, you, by the time get to like maybe, 10, you're going to forget a lot of the material. So it's really important to make detailed notes and label things and explain things for easier reference when you're actually taking the exams. So our objectives here are teaching you how to improve comprehension. I've kind of done that with the methods. Another objective that I personally have for you is that you feel confident and prepared when you take the SACA exams and beyond. This here, I mean for like you're interviewing and applying for jobs, you're working in the field, or maybe you choose a related field. I want you to feel confident and use these skills if you decide to continue learning, if you decide to go to college, if you decide to do other short-term job training, whatever you decide to do, these are skills that you can use in the job as well. This is another quote from that excerpt that I mentioned earlier. By, having the confidence and getting these certifications and feeling confident that you comprehend the material, this is super important for your confidence in getting a job because of the what these certifications signify in the industry. So, what are we going to be studying on? So these are the things that we're going to be studying on, that we're going to use and apply our methods of increasing our comprehension. We're going to look at, in part 1, Ohm's law, voltage, 2 types of circuits, series and parallel. These are not the only types of circuits. I just want to briefly mention that these are just 2 types based on arrangement that we're going to be looking at. In part 2, we are going to apply what we've learned in part 1, and we're going to focus on Kirchhoff's voltage law and how it looks a little different in series and parallel.